So do get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. Now, why own when you can share? That is the guiding principle of the so-called sharing economy. And in the last few years, the phenomenon has really taken off. It means we can now share everything from cars, homes, even our power tools and pets.
Indeed. Now, one man who knows all about this is Stephany, the chief executive of JustPark.
It is a technology platform that connects people searching for a car parking space with others, well, frankly, who have a space to spare.
The startup has just raised $5.4 million, the biggest ever round of crowdfunding for a tech startup in the UK.
Before that, though, Alex, before working in startups, he actually trained to be a corporate lawyer. Well, pleased to say that Alex is with us now. He's the chief executive of JustPark. Alex, welcome to the programme.
Good morning.
We've touched there on JustPark. It's one of those things that people get very frustrated about, and here is a technological way of solving that problem. How does it work?
So JustPark is an app and website that lets drivers reserve a parking space. And we do that by simply giving them access to space that already exists. And that means the driveway is owned by more than 17,000 families and individuals in the UK. So, like much of the sharing economy, it's fundamentally about excess capacity and making the very best use of what we have already.
So is it just simply talk us through the logistics, people connecting and getting on, how do they get paid, all that kind of thing?
It's incredibly simple. If you've got a parking space, a driveway or a garage, you go to justpark.com and you list it for free, and then you sync it with your bank account, and drivers will come and go, and then money just shoots over into your bank account. So it's a really seamless process.
Now, what strikes me about all of this sharing economy discussion is some of the things are very basic things. Finding somewhere to park is a very basic thing. And in the olden days, maybe if you knew your neighbour had more cars than you and you had space on your driveway, you could rent it out. Technology means that it's quicker, easier, and frankly, it connects strangers rather than having to necessarily know someone. So it makes an old problem, and it's a very new solution. It's that sort of thing that is changing the sharing economy, isn't it?
Absolutely. So the fundamental driver for many of these businesses is making and saving money. But what I explore in the business of sharing is how it adds another layer to this of social capital. And so it's very often connecting people across all kinds of boundaries of race and nationality and religion. So it's creating social capital out of economic capital. But at the same time, there is some social capital destruction, you could say, because what it's doing is it's applying a financial value to some deeds that were once done for free.
Well, yeah, that's the point, isn't it? I mean, if you're saying to your neighbour, look, you can borrow my drill or my power spray or whatever it is, but I'm going to charge you for it. That changes fundamentally your relationship with your neighbour, who in the past you might have said, yeah, of course, help yourself, just bring it back.
I think, yeah, there is an element of that. But at the same time, and this is the most powerful thing about the sharing economy, it's empowering hundreds of millions of micro-entrepreneurs. That might mean renting out their home on Airbnb or renting out their driveway on JustPark.
You mentioned Airbnb. Uber's another very well-known app that enables you to find a mini cab near to you very quickly. They've had a lot of problems. They've had a lot of regulatory issues. They've had protests. They've had lots of reaction. What about JustPark?
JustPark hasn't. In fact, Eric Pickles came out in favour of driveway rentals. We had a very small number of councils who wrote to some by property owners and suggested that they weren't able to do this, and then the government intervened and issued guidance to councils saying that individuals and families can rent out their driveways.
Do you have any issues with abuse of the system? I mean, have people had problems with JustPark in the sense that they've put their driveway up for rent and people are scrapping over the space? So I can imagine in central London it's a problem.
No, we don't. I mean, people book it like they book a hotel room. It's very, very simple. I think what's interesting is how safe these platforms are, and the fundamental reason for that is that they are very transparent. So on JustPark we have more than 250,000 reviews, believe it or not, of parking spaces. And so when you book a parking space, you have a very, very good idea about what that experience will be like.
What's interesting, I touched on it earlier in that graphic that we saw on Twitter, is that what we're seeing now are organisations that, as you said, Airbnb, one of the biggest hotel accommodation providers, doesn't own any hotels. We're seeing it with Uber, doesn't own taxis. I mean, it's astonishing, isn't it, how these businesses are created, frankly, from nothing.
Yes, they are. And I think the point here is that these businesses rely and leverage efficiency. And if you strip everything around, what they're doing is they're finding more efficient business models by connecting people. And a good example of that is Lending Club, a business that recently IPO'd in the US. That's peer-to-peer lending. They have an operational expense ratio of less than 2% compared to, say, 5% for banks. So that's really what's driving this sharing economy forward.
Really interesting to talk to you. Alex, thanks very much. Alex Stephany there, Chief Executive of JustPark. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And our guest tomorrow will be getting the inside